All right, welcome back to another episode of Private Practice Practically. On today's show, we have a very, very special guest, Regina. How are you, Regina?
I'm wonderful. It's really great to be here.
Awesome, Regina. For those of us that don't know who you are, what you do, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice?
Sure. Where do you want me to start?
Where you're located, what kind of therapist you are, and what your demographics are that you like to work with.
Sure. So I'm in Hermosa Beach, California, which is about 15, 20 minutes south of LAX airport. And uh, the office has pretty wonderful ocean views. So it's a nice, relaxing place to come and really settle in. Um, I am an LMFT, a licensed marriage and family therapist. Come to this work after almost 20 years in law, tech, and finance. I was an investment banker for many years and actually started a couple companies. And the exit from those companies really allowed me a chance to go back and do what I wanted to do when I was 15 years old. So it's actually like a really nice homecoming.
Wow, that's really cool, Regina. What motivated you to want to be a therapist going all the way back to when you were 15?
I have a very non-traditional background in terms of I'm Russian, and you probably don't find a lot of Russian therapists. I was born in Moldova, where life is really, really tough, and nobody really wants to talk about how tough it is because why talk about it if you can't do anything about it, right? Kind of this culture of this, social and really cumulative suffering, right? And
Mm.
so when we came to the States, I was really expected to push education, do something that makes money, and the idea of being a therapist didn't really resonate with my family. They didn't take the risk to come here only for me to be curious about other people's lived experiences. And yet, I think I've always known that I find people really genuinely interesting, and I find struggle really interesting, and the context in which it exists, and kind of the worlds and prisons we build for ourselves. And I like to read a lot. I'm just always finding myself curious and wanting to understand. And I think that aligns really well with this work.
Wow, that's so wonderful, Regina, and I'm really glad that you held on to, I don't want to call it a dream, but that idea of going back to school and becoming a therapist, because it would have been understandable if you just let go and be like, oh, well, I'm successful, I'm going to keep repeating and making this money, so you held on to it, and so that's really commendable. I think that's awesome. Who do you help most in your practice?
I tend to work with, I kind of have two segments that find me, which the first is high achievers, right? Folks that are really successful and they're not really used to asking for help or really even acknowledging that they might need help. And yet they're at this existential point where something is not feeling right, something needs to shift, something needs to change. Maybe it's a relationship that's starting to fall apart because there's been this focus on career and just meeting everyone else's expectations. Maybe it's some sense of I'm showing up and I'm working 10-hour days and I don't really know why I'm doing it. Maybe it's a lot of conflict at work and the sense of I want something different, right? But people that are really at this existential point of trying to figure out who they are and what's not working in their lives. The other is, and I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that I'm a mediator and I have my JD, but I have a lot of couples that really are either in high conflict or have completely lost any sense of connection or intimacy in their relationship, and they come in and they really want to jump in, and they know something has to change in their relationship. They have a big decision. They have to decide if they want to stay together, if they want to work on the relationship, or if they're ready to part ways.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, really powerful demographics that you work with, and kind of lots of threads that we can pull on. But I like to kind of shift gears and discuss your first session. What does the first session with you look like?
Sure. Folks usually come in and they're really nervous, and that makes a lot of sense, right? If you're not used to being open about, or even being vulnerable, because there's so much anxiety about being seen, and if you've crafted this image of yourself, it's going to be really hard to come in and sort of go open kimono, right? So my first session often is really just acknowledging the anxiety in the room and really getting curious, right? And tell me a little bit about why you're here, and really trying to understand. People will bring in their symptoms, right? And can I, in the first session, somehow get them curious about the context in which those symptoms exist, right? If you are working full time and things are not going well at home and you're coming in and you're stressed and you're overwhelmed and you just want to fix everything right away, right? Then we need to talk about expectations, the context in which your stress exists, what's changeable, what's not, right? And really get people to settle in. And then I say a couple of things to everybody that comes in the first session, which is, I am an expert on this process. I am not an expert on your life, right? And really allowing the person that's coming in to own that expertise and kind of demonstrating the kind of curiosity that they hope that I hope they're gonna take on at some point, right? Of really saying, well, hold on, let's really try to understand what's happening intellectually, emotionally, somatically, right? Let's really at least just put it on the table.
Yeah, that's so good. Regina, so once somebody settles in with you and you help them be curious in that first session and start kind of asking those questions, what does progress look like after they work with you for a while?
The word that always comes up for me is agency, right? A lot of times people are coming in because they're stuck, because a way of coping is really not working anymore. And my goal is to try to see, can I start moving them out of that anxiety state and more into that confident knowing, right? More of that self-assurance, and finding some way of, they might come in, they might say, I'm really frustrated that I yelled at my kids, right? Or I'm really frustrated that this person at work is not listening to me, or whatever it is. And then my goal is to get them to say, no, I just noticed it. I'm noticing that when this happens, I react in this particular way. And it's kind of making sense based on what we've talked about, why I'm showing up this way. And I might be getting to a point where I want to do something about it and do something different, right? So it's this opening of curiosity, but then it's connecting to more agency, right? Connecting to also more accountability and responsibility, because everybody comes in and they want somebody else to change, right? And then my goal is to really allow them to see what's in their power and their control and
Oh,
what isn't.
yeah, that's so good, Regina. And along with that, do you kind of make it part of your practice to teach skills? Is that something that you help your clients do? And if you do, how do you do that?
Sure. So I describe my practice as depth and insight, but insight without action is just observation. And so I really bring a lot of my background in, which is, if you're coming in and you're spending this money, you're spending this time, you should feel like you're getting something out of it, right? And what does that look like? That might look like challenging you to do something different. That might look like asking you to consider something from a different perspective, right? But accountability is a big part of my practice. And I try to build that into every session of making sure that when you're walking out, right, you're willing to do something a little bit different, right? Maybe it's just slowing down. Maybe it's not seeing your partner as your enemy, right? And maybe considering that there's somebody else that's really hurting and lonely in this relationship as well, right? Maybe it's looking at the way you're shutting down and withdrawing when things get really tough, right? And then really challenging you to say, can we just make a 10% shift, right? And if the next session you come in, you're like, yeah, that was lovely, but I didn't do anything about it, we're going to look at the resistance, right? How is this playing out, and is this contributing to next time?
Yeah, that's so good. And I really appreciate that you start small with your accountability and well, not small with the accountability, but I mean, like, there is small progress being made, although it's still progress, and that's great, you know. Accountability can be heavy. It's a heavy thing. It has like some stigma to it. For those people that kind of have had, I don't want to say trauma, but maybe some struggles with the term and the idea of accountability, how do you do that in a way that really encourages the client to accept that?
Yeah, so let's take a really highly charged one, right? Let's say I'm working with a couple where one person kind of has this big, intense personality, and they're maybe being overbearing or manipulative in some way that they're trying to get their needs met. And I have this other partner in the relationship that is really trying to manage their emotions, right? They're becoming very docile, very apologetic. The work there might be to point out, like, hey, are you aware that you are working so hard to manage this person's emotions, sessions, right? And can we talk about what that's like for you? Can we try to understand where you learn how to do this, right? And once you have that kind of curiosity, that understanding, it's what would happen if you didn't, right? And can we go into the fear side? Well, he would get really mad. He would go up, right? And then what would happen? Right? Is it safe for you to have a voice in this relationship? What do you want it to be like? And initially, it's sort of like planting seeds, right? I'm not expecting you to come in the next session and be like, all right, I spoke up, everything's different. You know, that would be unrealistic, but it's slowly working towards developing more agency, more courage.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Regina, because it makes me think about the process of therapy itself, and I think that a lot of clients believe that therapy is like this linear process,
Mm.
or it's like I just got to do this and this and this, and once I kind of show some proficiency in this, I'm going to be good. And for those clients that are not aware potentially that growth can mean one step forward, two steps back, how do you prepare them for that journey of a little bit of growth and then a few steps back, right? And then it's sometimes we go sideways, sometimes we go back and forward, and like that whole just kind of as a therapist how that journey goes in therapy. Do you prepare your clients for that, and how do you do so?
I do, and this is really a multi-part question, right? Because on one part, the thing that's so difficult about the step back is shame kicks in and says, you're not working hard enough, this is never going to work, you're going to fail, and dismantling that old structure, right? And again, moving back into curiosity. Okay, what just happened, right? Okay, well, sometimes we don't jump ahead, right? Sometimes you have to stay here for a while. And in that space, it's teaching tolerance, right? The ability to sit with anxiety, the ability to sit with fear, the ability to sit with loneliness, right? The ability to sit with being not liked. And it's really teaching that emotional tolerance that helps people expand their capacity, which is being versus doing.
Yeah, that's great. Regina, there's some clinicians out there that are really intentional about having the clients kind of feel a certain way at the end of session. They come in to discuss a challenging topic, and there might be some big emotions that come out as a result of that conversation. And there's some clinicians that are like, well, I don't like my clients leaving in a bad, you know what I mean, in a bad state of mind, or maybe dysregulated. There are others that are like, hey, we did the work. We got the most out of our time, and that's okay. They can go home and kind of discuss it. How do you approach kind of the end of your sessions?
So, look, safety is always paramount, right? And, like, for example, with my couples, if I can feel that there's a tension and it's not being talked about in the room, and I know that when session ends, they're likely to continue litigating this in the parking lot, I might actually call it out. I might say, hey, I'm sensing there's some tension between the two of you. And I oftentimes will be leaving the office, and couples are still sitting in the parking lot saying everything to each other that they did not have the courage to say and hear. And so, can we talk about what you imagine you're going to fight about when you leave the office? Right? So, like, that's the way I might introduce it in couples. In individual, if I feel like somebody has the capacity to sit with bigger feelings, I'm not going to tie up the session and put a bow on it and send somebody out with this feel good, right? That's not really helpful, because if something's coming up, there's value there. It's important. I want to be able to sit with you in it, but I want to help you sit with it on your own, because the goal isn't to create dependency where you have to come to therapy to feel better. The goal is agency, where you eventually learn to do that for yourself.
Ooh, yeah, that's so good, and I love that you brought up this word agency. Where clients learn how to handle those emotions on their own, and you're right. I think a therapist can run the risk of having a client develop that dependency on the therapist to, like you said, put a bow on it, make everything nice. So that's really cool. Regina, I like to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about you. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, awesome. So what's on the horizon for Regina? Like, what do you do outside of the therapy office? How do you spend your time?
Uh, Thank you for asking. I'm a parent. I've got two teenagers at home, one of which is getting ready to leave for college. And shockingly, they both still really like to hang out with me. They do oftentimes remind me that I'm not really that funny, but other than that, they're lovely human beings, and I'm trying to get as much time with them as I can. When I'm not doing that, I was an endurance cyclist for many years and a runner, and so I try to get outside as much as I can and still kind of push a little distance.
Yeah, that's great. Are any of your kids going into law school? Just curious.
The way they argue, maybe they should. No, it's interesting. I really tried to take a back seat to them figuring out who they are and what they want, and allow them to really find what drives them and what excites them. And both of their parents are lawyers, and so far, neither has. They're both really interested in business. I think they saw how excited I was when I was growing businesses and raising money, and that really got that bug going. And I've helped each of them kind of start little entrepreneurial ventures, and that's been really exciting for all of us as a family. So uh, my hope is that they continue to pursue that.
Oh, that's so great, Regina. As you mentioned the word lawyers, it got me thinking about another question that I meant to ask earlier, and that is, do you blend your legal training with your therapy practice in any way? And if so, what does that look like?
Oh, great question. I do, right? So if you think about what law school really does, is it teaches you how to think, but it also teaches you how to hold two contrary perspectives at the same time, right? Which is so immensely helpful in couples therapy and in staying regulated when there's a lot of tension or conflict or these really big decisions, right? And so that's something that's been really powerful for me, is being able to sit in a room and hold two opposite perspectives, right? And really understand how one person is seeing things from that lens and the other is seeing it from a completely different lens, and doing what I can to help develop curiosity and empathy in that, right? Versus trying to kind of litigate for one or the other. The other thing, and this is part personality, part training, is I think I have a way of commanding a room and holding boundaries that are really, really helpful, right? A lot of times people come in and they are very unboundaried, and they feel really dysregulated because something really important is at risk. And so that ability of saying, hey, hold on, I really need you to slow down and take a look at the way you're showing up. And I want you to ask yourself, like, do you feel like you have a lot of integrity right now? Right? Are you proud of the way that you're showing up for your partner, for your family, for your employees, whatever it is? So that part's really helpful. And then being a mediator is really helpful, and just having good technique in terms of understanding what you're solving for, right? And people come into couples therapy with very different needs, right? One person oftentimes wants the conflict to be over. They want to start a new relationship. They want to put everything behind them, especially in betrayal trauma or infidelity. And the other person is sitting in all this raw pain and emotion. And sometimes it feels like you have a Grand Canyon between the two of them, right? And so using a lot of those mediation skills of really like helping each person understand the other, and also helping them understand what's at risk.
Yeah, it sounds like your legal training, excuse me, really serves you as a therapist, and really kind of underpins a lot of your thinking process and the way you can help your clients. And that's, I think, a competitive advantage that you have for sure. Um, Regina, for clients that are watching this, or potential clients that are watching this, and they're kind of on the fence, they're like, I don't know, I'm not sure. What's something that you'd like them to hear?
First of all, I think it's okay to be skeptical, right? And what I really want people to do is take the time and establish the relationship, establish the connection, right? Come in, do a consult. If I don't think I'm the right fit for you, which happens, right? I will sometimes meet with clients and I think of somebody else that I think may be the perfect clinician for where they're at or what they need. I will absolutely say, hey, I think I can really help you, but here are two or three other names. Give them a call and see what that feels like, and then really go by that gut feel, right? I'm not going to be the right therapist for everyone. I've had people that have met with me and then gone and met with somebody else and then come back and said, okay, I think I'm ready. Maybe I wasn't ready because I really didn't want to be challenged. I didn't want to be held accountable. I kind of wanted to just come in and vent, but I'm in a different place and I'm much more prepared for what you offer in your practice. And I'm really cognizant this is a huge investment, and if you're going to spend a couple $100 on an hour, 15 minutes of your time, you should leave feeling like you're getting something really valuable out of it, right? And therapy is the one service where people come in and they're like, how much is this going to cost? We're like, in total, I don't know. How long is it going to last? I don't know. What are we going to do? I'm not sure, right? It's hard to buy in when there's so much uncertainty. So what I try to do is, and what I say to clients in their first session is, listen, I'm always going to tell you what I'm and where I'm going. And if you're ever curious, or if you're ever thinking, you're reading my mind, tell me, and I'll tell you what I'm actually thinking. I'll tell you why I'm suggesting an intervention. right? I'll tell you if I think you're doing something that's really messing up your attempt to connect or relate or get a promotion, right? And you can, and with time, that trust really helps people be like, okay, I know where you are. I don't have to do the work of managing you because you'll tell me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Regina, for clients that want to reach out to you and partner with you, how can they reach out?
My website, reginaabayev.com. It's the best way. They can schedule directly on the site, and I try to make it pretty easy and seamless. And I will try as hard as I can to get people to come in person, people that drive in from San Diego and from Santa Barbara, and they say that they love the drive, they love the reflection time in between, but I really try to pull people to come in person because I think it's a different experience.
That's amazing. Regina, I really appreciate your time coming on to the podcast. I hope that people reach out to you and connect with you, because it sounds like you really are an incredible asset out there in California doing great work.
Well, thank you so much.